Very warm welcome. I'm absolutely delighted. I'm thrilled to be here. And before we get started, please let me very quickly introduce my very, very nice guest that I have here with me today. If I may start from the left, Mr. Sami Saviris, who is the CEO of a very serious development company, Orascom, who has done great for Egypt, who is doing very exciting projects in Switzerland and in other destinations of the world. We have Jillian Blackbeard, who is the CEO of Tourism Botswana, the host country this year, who is representing one of the, I'd say, most spectacular destinations there is on this planet. I have then the Honorable Maurice Lusto-Lalande, the Minister of Tourism of the Republic of Seychelles. I think the Seychelles are a destination that speak for themselves. It is very often compared with paradise on earth, and I guess it comes pretty close to it. And to the far right, I have Sergio Comino, who is running a glamping site, which is a combination of glamour and camping, and basically shows us that luxury does not necessarily have to go just by stars, just by hotels, just by private jets, but can go very different directions as well. So please give them a very big hand. I'm delighted to have them here. Welcome to Berlin. To get started with one little housekeeping task, we have a little interaction device that we have distributed to you. It's on your seat. We would like to ask you a handful of questions related to our panel today. And the question is, sometimes we hear that the luxury segment is changing drastically. Which statement do you agree with the most? Please just answer with one. You'll have your little device, and you have the choice of answering either the understanding of what luxury is changing fundamentally, the definition of new luxury will have an impact on the overall market, or the change is in the understanding of luxury will only impact a small high-end market segment, or there is no fundamental change in the understanding of what luxury is all about. So please take 10 seconds to give your choice of answer and then press the recording button. Well, thank you very much. Therefore, let's enter into the topic. So thank you for this interesting outcome. It was kind of what we expected. Appreciate that. Thank you. Before we get started with our panel, let's quickly talk about luxury. And I guess the biggest luxury today in Berlin is to have either an operational airport, but we'll see how that's going to develop. Other than that, we have found in the last couple of years that something is happening in the market, and that luxury is not what we used to think luxury was all about. And we have noticed that there was a dramatic change from, say, tangible dimensions to intangible dimensions. So together with the senior management of ITB, we developed a luxury manifesto. And this luxury manifesto, so to say, is what is the basis of what we believe luxury is all about. It is on the web. You can read it. There are a lot of new thoughts about what luxury is all about. And we have kind of identified a handful of dimensions, so to say, which we think are of key essence for the future. It is mainly time and space. Well, you know that. You're standing in a hotel, and the first question is that your breakfast buffet will be from 6 to 10. By all means, ladies and gentlemen, let breakfast be 24 hours. Having space. I mean, we have specialists from the Seychelles, we have specialists from Botswana that are going to talk to you about space. Health and safety. I mean, the dream of eternal youth is as old as mankind, and it still is. and it's seen to be a very, very important thing. All the spa concepts derive of that wish. Safety, and it is not about just being bombed out of your shoes, but it's also about providing paparazzi-free zones. It's about clean, natural resources, fresh air, being able to drink water from the tap. It is furthermore sustainability and authenticity. Please provide authentic product. Walk the talk. The days of some very broad advertisements are over. We want facts. We want the real deal. Sustainability. Of course, we want to be economically profitable. We're not the Salvation Army. But beyond that, it is about social responsibility, and it's about increasingly and more about ecological sustainability. Exclusivity and individuality. Excludere, in Latin, exclude, reduce to the max. The new luxury is small. It is not about 3, 5, 7, or 800 room big hotels, because you can impossibly provide a personalized service. So your new concepts may be 10 rooms, 5 tents, maybe it's 20 lodges, 5 villas, whatever. Individuality. We don't want to be the number 205. We have a profile, and we want to be addressed by our needs. We want to be addressed with who we are individual. And last but not least, it's about connoisseurship and aesthetics. We want to make sure that we understand what we're doing in depth. Taking this as the new vibes, I would now like to hand to my dear guest and maybe start with a very first question, which will be the same for everybody. Very much asking individual, what is luxury for one and the all? Mr. Saviris, what is luxury to you?
Well, in today's world, I think luxury is becoming more a function of space of time, space of even in your dwellings, space allowing lots of freedom to design your day or your holiday as well. And it manifests itself really now even in the architectural aspect of properties, where people no longer accept, for example, bathrooms that are smaller than 2 by 2 meters in any kind of category. I mean, I remember I have a little ad that's been framed and given to me as a present from a hotel that used to exist around the turn of the 19th century, that was demolished, I think, in the 50s or 40s, and where we actually today built the Chedi in Andermatt. And the ad read clearly as a way to enhance sales: hot water and bathroom in every floor. Now, from that being a luxury in the late 1800 and something to today, we have moved so far that today, if you're designing a seriously luxurious hotel, your bathroom has to have a view. It's no longer accepted to build bathrooms that are somehow in desperate need for artificial light, and where you're under the shower and you're looking at a wall that's just a meter or 2 away from you. That's no longer an expression of space or an expression of luxury. So I do think that in today's world, people have been jammed in these capitals that keep growing in size, you know, and people are feeling the lack of space even to just sit and do nothing alone is becoming rare. So this has reflected very much on the holidays, that people are looking for more space when they travel than they used to.
Thank you very much. Well, I reckon the space and the view is definitively something that we get as a part and parcel of an experience in your world. Yeah. What is luxury for you?
I'm thinking about those rooms with a view, and certainly in Botswana, I know when they're architecture and they're building our bathrooms, you're going to be sitting on that throne and seeing an elephant walk by. And so I'm assuming that's quite luxurious. I don't think there's many people who can say that they had that experience. I think for us, it's very much giving somebody something that's unobtainable, that very, very few people have access to. And it might not necessarily, in my view, be tied to a traditional luxury product. It is something that you've experienced that very few people are able to experience. So yes, in the Okavango Delta, based on our strategy of low volume, high value, you have camps that are no bigger than 4 or 5 rooms. That's luxurious. You're never going to share your experience with anybody else. And this is how people have attributed Botswana's luxury product in the past. But if we're looking at changes, I think that luxury can also be an experience in, for example, a cave that has never been explored before. The fact that you as an individual can be maybe the less than 100th person to experience that, and you've had that ability to travel 10, 15 hours in the middle of nowhere, and that exclusivity of seeing something that nobody else has seen, those are products that we're looking at. And I think when we look to develop our luxury model, not always working to the same model. If we're going to do luxury wildlife, fine, but why not put a luxury lodge on a cave, for example, that no one else has explored? So yes, it's important to have something that very few people have access to.
Thank you very much. Minister, the elephants are probably not as often to be seen on the Seychelles. Luxury for you.
Well, I'll be brief. I think luxury for me means to have a pleasant and a satisfactory experience. For me, it's, to coin the phrase, it has to be a bed of roses. And that for me is my take on luxury. I agree with the lady that you need to be attentive to your customers, and you need to always offer and diversify your product range to remain meaningful in this tourism industry. Seychelles has marine elephants. We don't have land elephants. Mm-hmm. So we need to add the marine space also in our product range as we offer better products to our clients.
Thank you very much. Mr. Comino, luxury to you.
So being a representative of the open-air sector and having to deal with numbers which are of course far different than those of the people sitting next to me, I have to say exclusivity is of course an important matter, but there are other aspects which are important as well. Sharing things with other people, overcompensating someone's needs, and even trying to fulfill one person's dreams is, in my opinion, the key to a luxury product. From my point of view, of course. I have different guests, of course. We are not an expensive holiday solution. Therefore, we were built a long time as a mass market for low-need people. It is drastically changing during the past year because of this glamping movement. We are going to talk later about this probably. And in my opinion, it is a highly personal issue. You cannot define luxury with a definition which is a comprehensive definition in this case, but we have again to be attentive to the individual person's needs, and just being able of over-fulfilling that needs, and even understanding and fulfilling the person's dreams is the key to a true luxurious experience.
Thank you very much. I'm quite thrilled to hear basically these 4 statements and extracting some of the things that we have kind of identified as well. We talk about space, we talk about exclusivity, we talk about personalized service, we talk about experiences. And I think it basically shows one thing and it confirms one thing which makes us quite happy, that we're moving away from the tangible dimensions. We understand that the golden bathtub has gone democratic. So either you've got the spending income, yes or no, but you do not define yourself over this golden bathtub anymore. And therefore, the question is, how do you continue to drive this intangible momentum in the luxury understanding? Botswana is kind of the new dog on the block that has come up, say, since a couple of years on the big world stage with as a very special destination. So how do you go about that?
Well, we'll start with dogs. Easy place to do. For us, one of the key driving factors in our luxury market is our conservation policy. Very few people can say that they're home to 40% of the world's elephants. That in itself is there. And talking about dogs, we're also a third of the wild dog population is in Botswana, a third of cheetahs, the only increasing rhino population. So for us, that abundance, in a world where we're seeing animals being slaughtered on such a scale that it's impossible to imagine, for us, we're offering something, a good story. And it brings it back to the idea of how you link conservation, doing good, to luxury. Very few countries can say that, and it drives our luxury product. We talk about product diversification. Yes, we will add that. We'll talk about building new luxury product. It will happen, but it's based on that one proposition that we have this amazing, unique ecosystem, which is protected. The area of Tlhokomela, there is protections. There is no construction over and above what's deemed sustainable, and it will continue to be that way. It will never change. The government will never change its strategy to the Okavango Delta, which is why 2 years ago it was nominated the 1000th World Heritage Site by UNESCO. This for us is luxury. If you start from that basis, everything else can grow.
Is there not this tremendous danger of it's been accepted as something unique? It's been accepted as something which is demanded, that you start to suddenly develop and overdevelop. And there's a lot of examples in the world where as in marketing terms, a star has gone a cash cow.
Like we discussed.
As we discussed.
Actually, I think the first danger isn't even overdevelopment, it's complacency. If you already have a product that's a rising star, like the wildlife luxury product, it would be complacent not to make the changes to adapt to what the market wants. I think in terms of the Okavango Delta, the camps and lodges you see are changing. They are adhering to our conservation policy, but changing for the product. Botswana doesn't only have that high value, low volume. In areas, for example, in ex-hunting concessions, Botswana banned hunting over 2 years ago, so there is no trophy hunting. Hunting used to take place in non-traditional tourism areas, so it gives you an opportunity of space, and we can develop other products there. It will never be mass marketing, but it gives you an opportunity to leave what you have, keep it the way it is, and look at something else and develop the new models there.
Very well. The Seychelles, I guess you have a slight little smile on your face. It's very much what you do since decades. How comes that the Seychelles have kind of picked the right feeling already many, many years ago, and you're kind of leading in that field?
I think when we started in tourism back in the 70s, we realized that we were the smallest nation in the world with the smallest land mass. We only have 475 square kilometers of land, with a marine environment of about 1.5 million square kilometers. So these islands were to us very special. They're certainly very fragile. And the only thing we were selling, or we wanted to sell at the time, was the natural beauty of those islands, the pristine, unspoiled nature of our environment. But we took a decision right at the beginning that we would protect 50% of this land mass. Now, to put it in context, can a nation really afford to take 50% of its land and put it under conservation so that there is no development? So all the other development that can happen happens on the remaining 50%. But that was a choice that we took then. We want to do the same in the marine space. We will very soon be announcing a large marine ecosystem park, if you want, for about 30% of that area. And having set these ground rules, we then have some very strict planning laws or environmental laws to guide the development of tourism. There is public consultation on all the projects in the Seychelles which relate to hotel development. In fact, a large hotel in Seychelles is defined as a hotel with 25 rooms or more. Can you just imagine? But we stuck to our guns, so to speak. When the buzzword of ecotourism joined the fray of definitions, we had been practicing it from that early stage. So the formula is, you can bring one visitor, and if he leaves you $500 million, that's what you need to go for, rather than bringing 1 million visitors and each of them leaves you with $50.
Wonderful statement. Mr. Saviris, there is a lot of talk about conservation, about sustainability. Now, you're a developer. You are coming as a strong partner into different areas of the world. How do you go about that particularity? Because you kind of set infrastructure, yet in pristine environments.
Well, you have to remember that, just look at the history of this planet and how the perception of people has changed. And the key to success, in my opinion, is to try and read from history what's going to happen later. Like when we started trying to develop Ilguna into a CO2 neutral town, it was something like a big wow, and we got a ton of prizes for that. Today, in Switzerland, for example, you wouldn't be even allowed to build if you're not adhering to these norms. Like in Andermatt, when we started, we also made a big thing about it, and we decided that we will go CO2 neutral. And today, actually, the laws dictate it. So I think that the sustainability of the planet is picking up in pace to an extent where it's better for you to do it ahead so that people applaud you than wait until it's a law and then it just becomes a requirement and you get no brownies for it. But in general, I think people also expect you to be more responsible for what you do. And we are already overpopulating this planet by, I think, by a ratio of 3. So there is no sense in allowing further development that will add to the footprint, the CO2 footprint. And I believe it's just a matter of time before this becomes the norm worldwide for developers to adhere to. That nobody will be allowed to get away with adding pollution of any sort. So I don't regard it as something big. It's a train that's going. You either get on board and play by the rule, or you're going to be left behind. So there's no value really in claiming that you're an environmentally friendly guy or not. You better do it because it's going to come anyway.
Walk the talk. Thank you very much. When we talk about Venice, when we talk about a glamping site, How would you see your role in what we have just been enrolling? We're talking about the environment. We're talking about
Venice?
Close to Venice, isn't
Close
it?
to Venice, yes.
We're talking about pristine environment. We're talking about the way how you want to develop on a footprint which is carbon neutral. How do you see your role? How can you contribute? Where is your impact in regards to a luxury discussion?
First of all, open-air tourism is basically a lower impact holiday solution than a typical hotel holiday, of course. It gives a better starting point. I think one of the big attractions and one of the reasons because upmarket people join our products has to be found in the fact that there is an inherited need for open-air experiences. It is something we have inside of ourselves, and we were yesterday at the very nice gala where the Golden Leaf Prize was given, and we saw an interesting solution of someone offering sleeping, the possibility of overspending the night on the beach in a deck chair. So gazing at the stars. So it is something we appreciate. We have it inside of ourselves, and that's of course one of the basic needs we are fulfilling from our very beginning. And of course, coupling this with, of course, sustainability, ecological sustainability, was the next challenge. It is something which is pretty common in our sector so far as well. And, you know, we were talking about Venice before, and of course the fact that when people think about our environment, if you think the coast around Venice, in northern Italy, and is not something
to be proud
wild, yeah, of course, it's not something you can think to be a kind of wild. Of course, it is very humanized. But still, the challenge is, of course, to find the possibility, even in these environments, to find a way of organizing and shaping holidays in a creative way, considering the fact that just the coast is over-humanized. If you look at the picture, you will see that just some 300 meters, that's a site I'm managing, just 300 meters behind, you are in the lagoon of Venice. And it is a place where nobody knows about it, but we have more rosa flamingos there than in Miami Beach. And it is, you know, it is a wildlife oasis, which is just a couple of steps ahead. We are offering a wide array of possibilities of discovering the lagoon by using electric boats, segways, driving along the unpaved roads of the lagoon. And these are things which nobody would think about when considering going on holiday on the Adriatic coast. But still, like in Venice, although Venice is maybe overcrowded on peak days, we have 80,000, 90,000 tourists there, adding to the 50,000 inhabitants. It is pretty a large number. Nevertheless, if you think that in the 18th century and 19th century, Venice used to have 150,000 inhabitants, so the figure itself is pretty close. The difference is tourists are not spending their time, of course, inside their house or learning in their schools or working on some places, but they're all outside. But even in Venice, with 130,000 people, and I'm a born Venetian, I know what I'm talking about, what I'm saying about this. You have 90% of the towns where nearly nobody is walking. On critical areas, you have maybe to queue half an hour simply to reach this Mark Square, whereas as of 400 meters ago, you have squares and calles, so the roads are named Calais in Venice, where you hardly find someone. And you know, the challenge then for upmarket guests is to be guided and coached and informed accordingly. And because even on spots where otherwise you would not expect these jewels to be found, you can, if you work intelligently, find this niche which are suitable for upmarket tourists.
Venice is actually a good example of luxury meeting mass in the same place. And I'm quite astonished actually how this managed to be preserved, because I mean, obviously there's always a good reason for the luxury segment to go there. You know, they have a board meeting for the Guggenheim Museum in Venice, then you will have luxury-seeking attendees, and you will have to cater for that. But at the same time, these people somehow manage, as you rightly said before, to shun the masses. You know, they will go from back roads, they will get them from the airport with the boat straight to the Palazzo. So you can develop luxury within mass. And we see this even in Egypt, which is a mass market, that it's still possible to offer luxury. But Venice is quite
extreme.
Yes.
But look at the new hotel developments. They are not just in the very center of the town, but there are nice hotels which have been built and are just being built right now on the outside islands, or in town areas where less of our tourists are to be found. And it is, of course, I think, the key, because and it is a challenge for a touristic destination as well, to try to motivate people to go to places which are not as famous as possibly the classic picture.
The hotel does it. I mean, who would have gone to Andermatt 10 years ago for any reason, actually? But now people go for the hotel. So hotels have an incredible importance, in my opinion, to declare a place as a place where luxury is available.
The question, though, here is, sorry.
Yeah.
The question, though, here is you're talking about mass destinations, whereas you're talking the pristine destination.
Yeah.
So the question is, what comes first? Is it the hen or is it the egg? And maybe what you're discussing is that luxury has developed within something that has maybe just gone beyond, whereas you are still standing in the first line. So my next question would have just gone very much in that direction. To which extent does it contradict? And to which extent is growth correct? Let's come back to the original question. What does the luxury audience want?
Yeah,
and is it just a reaction to something that has been? Is it a reactive thing, or is it a proactive thing? So my question would be to Botswana. You're kind of not at that point yet. You haven't gone into the mass situation yet. So is that something which you want to preserve?
We strive for? No.
It's
certainly not something we strive for, just because that's not what our country can sustain. But at the same time, I was thinking about a linkage from the two gentlemen on this side to our smaller product offering. And you brought in the concept of a local guide being the conduit for luxury. And your guide would then, in a mass market, showcase individual things that nobody else could obtain. And also from our perspective, including a local guide, so to say, of the experience makes it unique. And when you think about a local guide, it also gives you that other element that people so desperately want right now, is even if you're a luxury tourist, you want to feel good about what you're doing. And so from our perspective specifically, if you're bringing in local guides or experts on the ground, you know that you're empowering somebody whilst you're experiencing your luxury product. And one of the things that many of the operators are doing is taking luxury tourists into either conservation space or cultural space. So you would have a local guide who would then integrate your luxury holiday with, say, a rhino release. And it comes with the Honourable Minister saying that it's better to have one tourist who will give you 1 billion rather than the other way. So yes, you attract them with a luxury product, but then you are able to engage them. You hope that they will be so astounded with what you're showing them and the local guide to be able to then add to your product offering.
But it's a function of demographics, really. It would be extremely superficial to just claim that what works for one country works for the other, and to seek for. I mean, when I see the guys in Abu Dhabi trying to copy Dubai, I tell them this is not necessary. You should stick to the low numbers because you don't have a large population. But when I talk to our colleagues in Egypt, for example, a country that's growing by 2 million every year, and we have already about 100 million, it would be almost obscene to try to focus on high-end luxury because you owe the population jobs, and tourism, as you well know, is the cheapest job provider today. I mean, a factory today will cost 100 million, and you can operate it probably by remote control from some other country to start with. So you need to look at the needs of the country. And as we both, fortunately, I wasn't alone in this claim, you can combine luxury within mass easily. I mean, it is not, if the mass comes here, then the luxury guys don't go there. And Venice is a great example. I mean, you can go and spend a night in Venice for a couple of €1,000, and you can still go camping somewhere and drive in the morning to the center. And probably we will both meet in San Marco at one point of time. And everybody has a different cost and perception of what his holiday should look like.
The Seychelles, you don't have San Marco, you don't have the big cruise boats that come into the lagoon.
Yeah.
What is your answer?
Well, I think each situation is different, and each country should be looked at differently. For example, you need to involve the local population in your tourism industry. You must do that, because if you don't do that, you will create certain problems. But how do you do that properly, bearing in mind that your target is the high end? Now, luxury, as I said earlier, for me it's a pleasant and satisfactory experience. Now, cooking a freshly caught reef fish, doing a small barbecue on a beach in Seychelles, that is also luxury, because they are not used to this, you see? And some of that clientele, that high-end clientele that come, if you propose these sort of, they're not even imaginative, but these sort of products, you will touch the luxury nerve. And the success will be when that visitor would have left. Question you must ask yourself is, you must make sure that he is imprinted with Seychelles. And if it's that fish that he has eaten on a barbecue by the beach that he caught 10 minutes earlier, so be it. What we need to also do is probably have some branded hotels that are known, and it is the case in the Seychelles that we have some of them, because this is the first pull, the first attraction to visit Seychelles by somebody who wants to visit, because he knows about the Four Seasons. He stays in a Hilton during his business trips. So he may choose it the first time when he visits a country. But then when he roams around and he sees the other, and we have this range of product in Seychelles. So Seychelles isn't just exclusive high-end. It's a mixture of smaller guest houses, self-catering establishments, that the repeat visitor would want to choose. He will no longer choose the Hilton, or I'm giving it as an example, of course. So I think you need to try and find that balance. And in the luxury end, you must provide those products. And I think that's, for me, the measure of success.
One of the key words that I picked up or the last couple of minutes was experience. And there's a nice distinction in German language between Erfahrung und Erlebnis. Regrettably, in English, it just can be, it's translated with the same word. But the question is, do you just go to get an experience by absorbing impressions, or is it something that touches your soul? And interesting is that it is increasingly, to what we understand, that experiences are gaining importance, heart-touching experiences. And the question, though, is, where do you get that experience? What is such an experience? If you take into consideration what has been said before, you talk about space, you talk about the exclusivity, you talk about the pristine environment, and so forth, so forth. So my question would be, how do you provide that experience? And I'm pretty sure that it cannot be a stroll over St. Marcus if there's 90,000 people around you. And it's probably not queuing at the big pyramids of Gizeh, whereas it would be very much so if you had it for yourself, if you had that exclusivity. So I guess this is a bit of the contradiction which may come in certain destinations, whereas these destinations may have a plus, simply because they may not have as a long tradition as Egypt with 5,000 years, or Venice with 1,000, 2,000 years. Not an easy one, and it's understood. And of course, we cannot chase all these people away. And yet, where do you get this fine balance?
But do you really think that everybody wants an experience? I mean, my observation from the few countries where I'm working, where we have hotels everywhere, you'll be amazed how few the number, how small the number is, people who want to experience something.
I disagree.
The bulk of the traveler today wants to go out of his routine at home to experience actually nothing but to switch off, stay on the beach and do nothing.
That's an experience in itself, though.
Of course not, because these people cannot even be enticed. I see them, and we have a quarter of a million visitors every year that come to El Guna. And I'm amazed on how many people don't even bother to take an excursion into the desert, which is just 3-4 kilometers from the resort, and go and experience wildlife or experience the dunes or whatever, because they couldn't be bothered. So I think we in the industry tend to overvaluate this aspect more than it deserves, because it's everyone's business.
I'm fully with you, yet let's not forget we're trying to address to the top end, to a very thin part of the entire market. I totally agree with you when you come to some of the mass destinations where the goal of your holiday may be just, as you say, doing nothing.
Yeah, but the Maldives is not a low end, for example, and people literally go there for nothing. I mean, people go to stay in a nice hotel.
I think we have to define experiences now, because that could be the next panel discussion.
Get started with the time we've got left.
It's not that the rich will seek more experiences and the poor are like superficial and they just want to stay on the beach and go and eat every day and all-inclusive and things like that. No, you have the same phenomena, and I would claim that you have more people on all stratas less interested in experience than you have among this category.
If only our abbot from last year would have been here, I think he would strongly contradict, because the experience can be very much a self-search. It can be a search of oneself.
Yeah, no, that's the difference. I'm talking about the environment where you are. I mean, the Maldives is a great example because it's like probably 10, 20 times bigger than the Seychelles market, and yet, obviously, if you go to the Maldives, you know that you're not going to have a lot of experiences, but you're going to have a relaxed time in a nice environment, in a good hotel, and the sea is wonderful. If you go to the Seychelles, then already you've made up your mind that you are actually searching for some kind of experience, because they have variety of in their islands. They have people. You know, you go to these islands in the Maldives, you barely meet anybody.
Yes, correct.
So from the beginning, we have to differentiate between the people who want to go. That's why you are so adamant about it, because you're used to it, people coming to Botswana for the experience. I mean, otherwise, why would anybody go and have an all-inclusive holiday in Botswana? I mean, that's nobody would do that.
I think that's a little bit small to say, why would people go just for that? They go for many reasons.
No,
if I look at it from my perspective, what am I going out to do?
You underestimate the amount of people that travel for that purpose. That's all I'm saying is that it has nothing to do with luxury and the cheap. Even within the luxury segment, or let's say the high-end segment, you have people that are not after an experience. I mean, we have a hotel in Laguna, for example, which has 12 or 13 rooms, which we built basically only to be able to brag that we have the nicest hotel in Egypt, but it didn't even make financial sense. And I tell you, I see people there that go and stay the whole week. They don't even bother to go to the downtown area or the marina, because they say, I don't need more. I have a beautiful room, I have a beautiful cook that does everything what I want, and the spa is 150 meters from my room, and they stay there for a whole week, and they leave, and they haven't seen anything, experienced anything. And they're happy people, you know. Can't complain.
What do you say?
Oh, it is up.
You've gone very quiet.
It is up. How can we summarize this? Of course, there are quite different positions, and in my experience, I agree with all of them. I see it as well that many times people come over and simply, yes, they are motivated before the holiday beginning from, of course, potential experiences, but the extent to which they really want to experience something different is up to the feeling they have in the very moment they are there, you know. And this is a reason because it is difficult to find, in my opinion, a unifying definition for luxury. It is up to the individual. It is, of course, everyone has quite very different needs. People wearing, we were talking about this before, people wearing a tie all day when at work will probably need to simply relax and be dressed easily. You need to overcompensate their needs in order to offer them a luxury experience, because it has to be something of emotional impact they carry with them when they go back home, not simply a relaxed feeling focused on that very moment, but something which imprints their own memory and their own personal feelings. Therefore, it is. I was always amazed when looking at my guests, and I was lucky enough to follow the development of the open-air sector for the past 30 years. And even when spotting such people, I was asking myself, why do they come here? Honestly, because in terms of hardware, we can hardly compare. There are just a handful of open-air villages or of campsites which can compete with 5-star hotel at all. You know? And why do people choose this kind of holiday? Maybe in some cases it is just the need of being understated, of having your privacy protected, because nobody would look for a tycoon on a campsite on the northern Italian coast. I mean, and maybe in some cases it is the need of social interaction, which in open-air villages is very strong and in a way better than in five-star hotels, of course, where people have to keep a distance. It is something which belongs to the atmosphere. So everyone has different needs, and the important thing is to offer a coherent product, in my opinion, which can, in a way, be dedicated to the fulfillment of specific need. Segmentation and specialization of a product is a key factor. And a good communication and the thorough explanation of what you offer and what the plus of your structure is a key success factor, in my opinion, because you cannot simply offer I'm a luxurious destination here, everybody should come here. In Botswana, of course, as you was saying, so they have, of course, a very targeted market. You know, when you go there, you expect something. I think in Seychelles, it is the same case, you know. Our products are a bit more broadband, you know. We attract more different people.
Just at the perception, you know, what worries me on a panel like this is not to be clear to the audience about the perceptions that are commonly believed by the public, which are not true at all. I mean, people go to the Red Sea because it's famous for diving, and people go to the Red Sea because they want to experience the sea. How many people in the public know that less than 50% of people going to the Red Sea put their foot in the sea? And the rest are always preferring to stay by the pools in the various hotels. So you would think that people have traveled all the way to the Red Sea to go and experience the fantastic reefs and the fish and so on, and then it ends up being 60% don't even leave the pool area, you know.
I confirm that because I can tell you just 1 in 10 guests goes to Venice, although being just 30 minutes far away, you know. But still, it is something which motivates them to come to our places, and I have to admit that the upper segment is, of course, more keen to experiencing something. And this is something in my opinion, we have to consider as well. Because, of course, large numbers and the average holiday maker wants simply to relax. But, let's say, upper segment guests probably are more focused on experiences.
Thank you very much. I wish we could go on for hours because we're just kind of heating up now. Sincerely appreciate that. Thank you very much. We're kind of running now a bit out of time. Let's just quickly, in 2 words, give you one last question. Minister, you live in paradise. Where'd you go on holiday?
That's a good one. Well, you know, the Seychelles is made up of 115 islands, so I do a little bit of domestic tourism. I have to visit the other islands, and I think every single one of them has its own character, it's very different. So I do experience Seychelles. That would be my answer, but I must also accept that we sometimes do a little bit of golfing holiday. I play golf with my family, so we tend to sometimes visit some super golf courses in Asia and play golf.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We have to wrap up. I would like to thank you very, very much. One can tell that the topic is a very open field. One can tell that it is very difficult. That's what we have found in the past and the present, is to have a proper definition. Is it even possible to have a proper definition? We had 4 very different personalities on stage today, and we have just proven one thing. We need to continue. In that very sense, sincere thank you very much to the audience, to my guests, and have a very pleasant day. Thank you.